A few years ago, I was considering changing our history from our beloved story of the world to something else. When I came across a TED Talk, and I'll try to remember to link this one down there, that essentially said that what most people know about Africa is war, slavery, and famine. And when I heard that and let it ruminate around in my mind for a while, I realized that that was the answer to my quandary about what to do for history. We were going to tell the stories of Africa. And I shared this in another video about why we stopped Story of the World. And I got some requests for the resources, and last year when I would talk about it, I got some requests to know what we used. So today, I'm going to share with you some of the resources that we used for Stories of Africa. And that's what I called the Stories of Africa because I wanted to emphasize that we're just learning bits and pieces of it. Now, when I went out to create it, because finding a good encompassing curriculum about Africa was impossible. When I set about doing that, I wanted to do as much as I could to avoid those three topics, except in the light of here was the impact of it, or here's what caused it, not about the story of famines themselves or war or slavery. Like, why did it happen and what was the lasting impact? Otherwise, I just picked stories about Africa, different places. I tried to get things from different parts of the continent and varied them so that we were building this idea of what Africa, what their stories really are. And did I do a fantastic job? Depends on how you define it. Did we all come away with a better appreciation for a continent that we didn't know much about? Yes. Did I do a full all-encompassing thing? No, not even close. Did we study some parts more than others? Yeah. However, we enjoyed it and we came away with a better appreciation. And that's what was important to me. The first two that I'm going to share with you were kind of our spines, because like I said, finding anything that was age appropriate and not whitewashed and not sanitized and all of that was impossible. So the first two that we used were video series. One is by PBS and the other one was by BBC. The PBS one is called Africa's Great Civilizations. The BBC one is called History of Africa. They were interesting, but I'm not sure I would call them engaging. They're very PBS style and very BBC style. They were really good. But at about an hour each, my boys couldn't make it through a full episode at a time. So we'd either divide it up over a couple of days, or we would just watch part of one and then not finish it. And we didn't watch all of the videos in either series. I just picked and chose which ones would be the ones that I thought would be the best for us. And part of me wanted to make sure like we watched all of it and stuff. And then I just got thinking that like, I want them to wisely use our time so that if they're bored and not paying attention, I would rather move on to something else, another history resource, and rather than waste time that they're not absorbing the information anyway, you know? So to me, it was fine that we didn't do every minute of each of those videos. The BBC Africa one we watched on BBC News Africa YouTube channel. It's a fantastic resource, so definitely check that out. Another one on that channel we liked was a playlist called African Women to Know, African Women You Should Know. I forget. It was really good for adding in with history too. The PBS one we watched on we used the PBS app on our TV, and I don't remember if it's I think for us it was a passport show. So check that out. If you don't know what PBS Passport is, I'll link a video down below where I explained it. Another one that I used, and I used because we had it. If I were studying Africa, I would not buy these if I didn't already have it. And that was the Story of the World books. I believe we used all 4 of them, bits and pieces from them. They're well written. We enjoy her writing style. And I know they were good stories. So I did choose the ones from Story of the World as well. Next book we used was this one called Classical Africa by Dr. Asante. I don't want to try to pronounce his other names, first and middle, because I don't want to get them wrong. This was a very, I'd say it was right on level. Mostly I read it out loud to them, and it was very good. Very textbook-like. Maybe a little more engaging than a regular textbook, but not much. But and I should say Classical Africa. So that defined it as, let's see, we started with African beginnings, of course, and then it went through, I think through like 1600, around 1600, 1800. And it does a really good job as far as giving you good facts. There are questions to go along with each section, vocabulary words. I found it used on Amazon, and our library didn't have it. If I were studying Africa, I would get it. I think it's worth that. Especially if I could find it used, depending on the price new, I may or may not. It was, though, one of the only, well, really the only textbook, age-appropriate textbook type thing that I could find. So if you definitely want some kind of a physical textbook type book, this is going to be one for you, because there are not many. I mean, like I said, this was the only one I could find that was appropriate for us. There is an activity book to go along with it, but we didn't buy that. It was a lot more because I couldn't find it new, or I couldn't find it used, and the new price I think was just marked up more than what like it should have cost, everything. So I didn't buy it. And then another one we really enjoyed for history specifically was, there's a website called Edcitement. They had a series or lesson plan called Trekking to Timbuktu, and we really enjoyed this one. I was able to assign the student version to my boys through Google Classroom, and so they would do that, like they would get on their computers, and I would be on mine from the teacher side, and then we would do it together partly. They would watch videos if there were videos, and then the other stuff we would do together. They enjoyed that because it's a different way than what we usually do school. So they enjoyed that. The videos were good. Activities were good. There were a few activities that we skipped or adjusted, but yeah, that was a really good set of lesson plans, and we learned so much about Timbuktu. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. As far as geography goes, well, first thing was this fantastic map. That's upside down. I just got this from Amazon. I will try to remember to link it down below. In addition to this one, I Googled for maps of Africa and then went to Google Image tab, and I found ones from different time periods that were really good. And I printed those out, and we were able to compare like how different kingdoms changed, how countries more modern like changed, in the last 100 years, as far as like who had control of them, and name changes, and the latter half of the 20th century as countries gained their independence from the European countries, saw those name changes and all of that. It was really interesting to be able to compare that, because then we could lay them all out at times and see how like the same area changed over the course of thousands of years. So that was a really good way to do it. Another one that we used for geography were these books by Mark Twain Media Publishing Company. They were just exploring Africa. They were Carson de la Rosa books. Anyway, it was definitely more geography oriented, and it was pretty basic, like workbook type stuff. There was some reading and then different activities like maps and knowledge checks. It had a good variety of topics in it. They had, the continent up close, climate, resources, industries, animal life, people of Africa, African culture, nations. They had the nations broken up into three different sections. Workbook form, which again was something different than what we usually do. So while they don't love it, which is why we don't usually do it, it was something different, which I was trying to make sure we did, like have different kinds of resources throughout this. So those books were good, and I would definitely recommend those. Good. They were under $10 each. I got one for each boy. I want to say they were more like $6. They were worth that amount of money. Also, for geography, back to BBC News Africa YouTube channel, the playlist Africa Explained, This is Africa, and Aroma were all really good as well. The Aroma one was a definite hit because it was about food. So I really like that. BBC News Africa podcast was also really good. I started listening to it last summer when I knew we were doing this because I wanted more knowledge before we started. So I needed that for professional development, I guess. And I'm really glad I did, because not only was it putting like current events into context for me, but then as we studied different parts of Africa, I could relate it to current events and relate current events to historical events and just give a better context of the stories of Africa. We listened a few times with my boys, but honestly, they really didn't enjoy it much. They kind of, I don't want to say dry, but it's not that super engaging style that they're used to, especially with podcasts. So mostly that was a resource that I used to further my own knowledge so that I could pass some of it on to them. And then the last thing that we used was this Africa Bingo book by Art K-12. Now, I found their directions kind of difficult to understand. I tried and I just didn't. So we just did it our own way. So they come with bingo cards and then the little ones. We would do it a variety of ways. In the beginning, I would hold up this card, and they would work together to find it on our big map while they were still learning where things were and being able to guess. Other times as we advanced, I would hold it up. They could mark it on their card without anything, and then we made it more complex so that they had to name it in order to mark it off of their bingo card. Added another level of difficulty to it. The backs have some little readings, so we would go over the basic facts, try to memorize capitals, that sort of thing. So those are some of our Africa resources that we used and enjoyed. I'll see you in the next video.